The Eastpointe City Council on Tuesday, December the 5th at 7 p.m. Please rise for the invocation given by Councilwoman Sarah Lucido. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, thank you for the many gifts you have given us. Please guide us as we utilize our talents and treasures for the betterment of all. We ask that you bless this council and everyone joining us tonight as we work together to make the decisions to benefit our Eastpointe residents. It is in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Here.
Councilmember Lucido?
Here.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Here.
Councilmember Owens?
Here.
Mayor Pixley?
Here. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I'll support that. I had a couple amendments. One, we should reschedule the audit. So we should add that to the agenda in new business.
Is the audit already scheduled for next meeting at 6?
Only unofficially in the sense that the auditors are on hold for December 19th at 6 o'clock. But as a meeting, you should schedule it.
I just, publicly reschedule it
Gotcha.
And
to
one
the
other
same
item?
date that year.
One other item then?
And if we could put the presentation for the medical marijuana folks now is fine, as opposed to at the end of the agenda, like we usually do at the beginning. If everyone else is okay with that.
I'm fine with that.
So
You want to do that right after approval or at, like, first unfinished business?
right after approval's fine with me.
Okay.
Somebody like to make a motion to add these two items to the agenda?
I'll make that motion. Approval of the agenda, the medical marijuana move to right after approval, and the scheduling to the end of unfinished business.
We have support.
Support.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. So then we'll have the presentation now, please.
Thank you for inviting us. My name is Chris Aiello. I'm an attorney on Mound Road. I've been an attorney in Macomb County for about 25 years. And then to my left is Jen Zielinski with Damascus Consulting out of Lansing. She does a lot of municipality consulting and Lansing work in the legislature. I do mostly on the municipality level. And then I also sit as a board of director on what's called the Michigan Cannabis Development Association. It's a trade organization that's in Lansing that oversees the legislation that started in 2016, and then just came, the emergency rules just came out yesterday, and I think I emailed a copy of those to you. If not, I just brought a hard copy of the emergency rules that set forth how all 5 licenses will be working. I also work in the industry on behalf of individuals who are looking to do business within your city and in the county itself, and then statewide. We'll try to make this quick. I'll take you backwards to time to 2008 when the citizens of this state decided that they wanted medical marijuana on the ballot. They passed it by an overwhelming percentage, close to 60%, declaring marijuana a medicine. 2008, unfortunately, did not have a lot of, it left it ambiguous as to where you can grow, who can sell what to whom, where it could be sold, and a tremendous amount of blanks inside of the legislation. So as it moved forward, you've seen a lot of Court of Appeals decisions and Michigan Supreme Court's decisions. One of them was called McQueen, where basically it said all the stores that you see south of 8 Mile right now were basically illegal. So lots of court fights, lots of prosecutors involved, defense attorneys, individuals that wanted to get into the business on the holistic side, helping people with their medicine, going to jail, people getting arrested. Lots of resources out of your pocket, my pocket, and everybody's pocket here for prosecutions, for laws, for ordinances. So that all came to an end in 2016 when the Michigan legislature passed what I call the seed to sale tracking system, where they created 5 licenses to help this plant on a medicinal level for medical marijuana to become a business. And the whole idea was to take it out of the houses that you probably see in your community, that you've been probably fighting for many years as to how to regulate and get marijuana out of the houses, out of the basements, that you drive by and you see 3 condenser units outside of a home, or you see a lot of electricity, you see fires, you see people trying to do a lot of things that they should have been doing, but they didn't know what to do because they didn't know where to do it. They were scared. They didn't know they could do it in a commercial building, if they couldn't do it in an industrial building. Those were all the problems that developed as to lack of clarity. They didn't know where to sell it. They were growing it. They didn't know how to get it to their patient, if they could sell it, trade it. So finally in 2016, with a lot of work, the seed to sale law was passed, creating 5 licenses. And it starts out with a grower, a transporter, a processor, a tester, and then the retail store, the provisioning store that comes with the natural progression of the plant. So all 5 licenses were created to help get this problem out of the way. People growing in the basements are now trying to figure out how to get into the commercial system. So the whole idea is one day to possibly, it's up to the legislature, I don't think there's much flavor up there to do it now, but to repeal the 2008 problem that we have, and that is allowing patient caregiver models to grow in their houses and then distribute the product in any fashion that they seem in their best interest, because there's no regulatory scheme on how to get rid of the product that they grow. So in 2016, they passed the law. Everybody started getting ready to apply for the law. The application process starts on December 15th for all 5 licenses statewide. There are many cities and townships before you that have already opted in. So the first thing that a township or a city has to do is what's called opting in, where you get educated on the process, on the plant itself, on maybe the stores that are just south of 8 Mile and how it's sold, and decisions are made right here and with your community as to whether this is a proper business for your community. And I can tell you now in Macomb County, it's picking up speed. There are Lennox last night, Lennox, Michigan, enacted their ordinance. And so they've opted in and they passed their ordinance. It took them 6 to 9 months to get done, and it's done. So they're the first Macomb County township to adopt and enact an ordinance. You'll probably see Warren moving towards that, because Warren created their caregiver model about a year and a half ago, and almost all, in fact, all of the industrial buildings that were vacant are no longer vacant, haven't been vacant for 2 years now, and has raised the price of the buildings, has increased the value of them, has cleaned up all the areas with all 5 inspections for buildings. So as we move forward to the application process, you have to opt in, and you get to decide on the number of licenses that you want to operate in your city. And there are model ordinances that Jen can give you or I can give you to help guide you and help you make decisions on what you want to do. There is an economic formula that comes along with this for opting in on behalf of a city, and Jen's going to touch on that, on how the economics, the 25% rolls down from a fund that's created in Lansing. The dispensaries themselves, the retail stores, will be taxed at 3%, and down the road, As you probably read and seen, there's a recreational ballot issue. Enough petitions were signed and registered with the Secretary of State to put it on the 2018 ballot to become recreational, to follow the natural progression of the rest of the country. As you probably all know, out west, Colorado, state of Washington, California, Oregon. There are currently 28 states that are participating in a medical marijuana program, and going on 8 states now that have full-fledged recreational markets. And just by reading and just browsing on your internet, you can see the amount of taxation that's coming in from this plant, and it's rather large. So Michigan now is at the point where they're accepting applications. Attorneys in this business and many other consultants are extremely busy because the application process is so intricate and so fact-driven by each community. Because you, for the first time, get to regulate marijuana. And you can do it in a sensible manner. You can tell those that want to get into a commercial aspect how, when, and where you want it grown, and an awful lot of other rules that you may have. No green signs, no white signs, no lights, no any of that. So you have the destiny in your own hands to regulate this plant in your community. And you would eventually get to the point where you would get a reading, get your ordinance out, and start working on it with the industry, with the neighborhood, and all different groups in your community to decide again if it's a good fit for you. Once you get to that point, I think you're gonna. Once you're immersed into it and you read and you sort of educate yourself and read about what's happening nationally, and not only nationally but globally, like Canada's the leading country in the world right now because they allow import and exports of the product, all the way from CBD products that are used for natural ailments, pain and suffering, arthritis, pain and suffering, topicals, lotions. An incredible amount of healing power within this plant. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jen and let her run with the rest.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to give a brief presentation on the Facilities Licensing Act. Chris gave you a very good high-level overview of the 2008 laws, kind of started bringing you into the 2016 laws that were adopted. I do have a full presentation, but I'm going to give you just more of the high-level overview as it relates to a municipality with regards to what your options are, as well as some of the revenue that it can generate. So Chris kind of gave you a background of the 2008, which initially is what my presentation includes, as well as some statistical data from the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs on our current medical marijuana program. Additionally, some of the laws that were passed. And let's see, these are the 5 types of licenses that Chris spoke to. Within this, the grower, you can grow up to 500, up to 1,000, or up to 1,500 plants, depending on the type of license that you apply for. And additionally, with regards to the grower license, a grower, a processor, and a provisioning center have the ability to vertically integrate, where it basically can be one entrepreneur doing all of those licenses. However, the secure transporter and the safety compliance center, which is your independent testing, where you're going to test for the THC levels, you're going to test for mold, mites, and other microbes that may deem the product ineligible for patient consumption. These last 2 license types cannot be involved with the other 3. That's to eliminate any diversion and inclusion of the product for the patient. Some examples of the sites that you can see. These are certainly state-of-the-art multi-million-dollar facilities. Anywhere, depending on whether or not you're rehabbing a building or doing a full-on new construction, obviously can generate some revenue in your tax base here within the municipality, as well as some jobs. Certainly will apply for opportunities for employment here. So this is an example of a cultivation site. This is your processor. And a processor is a license that will take the actual flower product of the plant and refine it into your oils. So this is where we get our CBD oils and other oils that we can use to treat patients so that they don't have to necessarily smoke the medicinal product. Your provisioning center is your pharmacy and or dispensary, as they're commonly called, your secure transporter, and your safety compliance facility. Additionally, just at a high-level overview within the state, there is a medical marijuana licensing board. It's a 5-member panel, and this panel is tasked with essentially, there's a lot more, but essentially approving or denying an applicant after they go through a thorough background check, not only for their criminal background, but as well as their financial wherewithal. Then they can apply for a license and go in front of the board for an approval or a denial. There's also an advisory panel, and this group of people will provide information back to the department as well as the licensing board on behalf of patients, doctors, municipalities, sheriffs. So this is an advisory panel that will provide information and intel up to the department. These are some of the members. So some of the local municipal options, as Chris spoke to, you do have the opportunity to either look at this and decide to opt in or opt out. So the question really becomes, why wouldn't you opt out? If you have a caregiver ordinance in place, the lack of control that you have with the caregiving model is significant in contrast to the amount of control that you'll have with the commercially regulated market that was adopted last year. You can choose which type of licenses are permitted. You can regulate the number of licenses. You can obviously tailor the ordinance specific to your community's best interests, as well as separate from the caregiver model. This is the first step in doing that. And additionally, under the caregiver model, you're not generating any revenue for your municipality, for your city here. Under the state commercial market, this is a way to generate a source of revenue not only for the state, but directly for the municipalities. So that being said, as Chris mentioned, at the provisioning center, all retail sales will be taxed 3% in addition to the 6% sales tax. This 3% excise tax is going to be shared with an array of different entities throughout the state. And specifically, I'll reference the municipalities. There's a 25% share to the municipalities of this excise tax. So the 3% excise tax, the 3% excise tax, according to Senate fiscal analysis, is estimated at about $24 million. So if we take that $24 million and take out 25%, that leaves about $6 million to appropriate to municipalities that have opted in. And now you will receive an allocation of that based on the number of licenses that you permit. So if we assume, let's say, 300 licenses are issued throughout the state, a municipality would be entitled to receive $20,000 per license annually. Now, with regards to the number of licenses issued and how this is all being broken down, I don't see this as being a fast booming industry right out of the gate. We're not going to see 6,000 licenses issued by the state in the first year. Now, that being also said, the model that the Senate fiscal analysis used when coming up with these figures was the Colorado revenue model. So based on sales in Colorado, is kind of they took those numbers and plugged them into their Senate fiscal analysis. Well, I can tell you that the number of patients here in the state of Michigan is more than double what Colorado has. We are the second largest medical marijuana patient numbers in the country. We are second to California. So these numbers are we are likely going to see them even larger than what they are. Just to kind of give you an idea of the overview of what kind of revenue a municipality can generate. Chris did speak to the seed to sale tracking system. I just want to reiterate that the plant itself is literally tracked from seed to sale. It is all the way through the system. The state will be able to look and see what batches failed because of mold or mites and how they were destroyed, and what product was eventually sold to a consumer should there be any recalls. So it is going to be a very closely monitored, heavily regulated system here in the commercial market. With regards to regulation, I also don't want you to necessarily think that if you allow this in your community, this is something that you have to regulate. This is not up to you or your local sheriff to have to regulate. By all means, you have the ability to do that. You have the ability to go in and make sure that they're following the standards you put in place. However, if there are issues, you report this to the state or you report it to the Michigan State Police, and they will come in, they will send their regulators to make sure that they are compliant. And if they're not, then they're fined or their license is revoked. It's much like a dry cleaner. You don't necessarily go into a dry cleaner and look at the chemicals that they're using and how they're disposing of them. The state does. Same with a liquor license. Your sheriffs and the folks in your community can walk into these facilities at any time. If they happen to notice something, they can certainly call it out and start reporting it, but it's not necessarily your tasked responsibility to have to regulate it. That is in conjunction with the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, their regulators, in conjunction with Michigan State Police. This is what I spoke to. Some of the things that we can expect with regards to the rules, and Chris handed you some of the emergency rules that we have seen released this past week. The state of Michigan is supporting cannabis by allocating $8.8 million to the Michigan State Police to assist with the onset or the startup of this industry, as well as providing some protections for other regulated industries that want to assist cannabis, such as a CPA and or attorneys and different things. So kind of some reasons as to why, a municipality should opt in. It's certainly going to provide some increased economic activity here. And if anything, I can say with regards to the economic activity, I would suggest looking at this sooner than later. You don't want to be left with breadcrumbs, because the investors that are coming here and the folks that are serious about getting their business started up, they're looking to those municipalities that have opted in. They're already making deals. They've been approved in municipalities where an ordinance was adopted over the summer, let's say, and they're doing their build-outs already in anticipation of being approved by the state. So your economic development, the sooner you have an ordinance available to the market to come in, they're going to start buying up your industrial areas that need to, that have been vacant for a number of years, and they're going to rehab these buildings, and they're going to come in and increase your tax base. They're going to keep up the facilities. These are not. This is not your reefer madness or your hippies coming in. These are legit business players that are coming in. State-of-the-art multi-million-dollar facilities, as I mentioned. It's creating jobs in your community. It's giving you the control and the regulatory aspect, not only in your community, but at the state level as well. It's providing safe access to patients here within your community, so they're not having to drive into Detroit or up to Flint or into Lansing. You're providing your residents here who are patients safe access within their community. And it's transparent. Caregivers aren't required to let a local municipality know that they're operating. I'm sure if you pull any electrical reports and whatnot, you can kind of tell where they are, but they're not required to tell you. So this is really helping provide transparency on the operators that you have within your community. It's bringing them out of the shadows, out of the basements, and providing them a way and a path to enter into the commercially regulated market. So I probably took a little longer than you had all hoped, but I do really appreciate your time. Thank you for allowing Chris and I to speak on this tonight. And we're obviously here for any questions, any follow-up that you may have. Certainly feel free to reach out to us. So we appreciate your time. Thank you.
And before any questions, just one more point on the economic end of it, is that you can charge up to $5,000 per facility for a license as long as you can establish it, as you probably already know through the heavily amendment law. But in addition to that, like the city of Warren, not only do they charge $2,500, but I know it's going to $5,000 here real quick. But then all of the inspectors, like Warren has one plumbing inspector left, and the They can't keep, he's so busy as a result of this industry alone that he's threatening to quit. So Warren's pulling its hair out because they don't have enough inspectors. So it goes through all 5 inspections, your electrical, your plumbing, your HVAC, building, zoning, and then eventually to your certificate of occupancy, where you as a municipality have complete control over the building and the regulatory aspect of that building. So we've calculated it, and based on how their ordinance is set up, they're making on a building that they allow 500 plants to grow in for the last year and a half, $12,000 a building on the application process, because they charge $2,500 on top of the $5,000 for a facility manager who manages the building on an application, and then they charge every caregiver in every room another $1,000 application fee. So for 500 plants, that's 7 caregivers at $1,000. That's $7,000 right there. So they're doing a really good job. They just really need to move a lot quicker in opting in, and they should, because of the amount of facility licenses that they've given out and the red carpet that they kind of threw out to the industry. In addition to that, lunches, dinners, gasoline, chewing gum, eyeglasses, the amount of people that are going to be spending their money in your city because they work here. They will be here. In addition to that, the real estate taxes that will be paid. The tentacles of this business are everywhere. Safes, pencils, paper, you name it. It's a full emerging market that's here for you to take the time to look at it, to understand it. The days of the reefer madness are gone. Northern Michigan University is the first Michigan university in our great state to set up a curriculum around the plant for a business and from a botanical aspect. And they've sent applications for interns to clients of mine in Lansing and in Warren, asking them, once this gets to the past the application process and they have their state license, will they take interns? And yes, they've already applied and sent it back and said, we will take your interns. And I have personally spoken with the greatest university in the state that has a green and white flag, and there are discussions going on to how possibly that could work in the biggest land-grant college in the nation. Bring that here, just like Michigan State has done isotopes, and to bring that ingenuity and technology into that university. Bring this research and development. Make Michigan, make my green and white university the best university in the entire country. Let's develop it, let's R&D it here in our state, and let's be the leaders on it. And you have the same opportunity. Please don't carry reefer madness into this. It's gone. These facilities that she's shown you, a 4,000 square foot facility requires well over $600,000 to operate and produce a product that is going to make it in a commercial market. It's here, it's not going away, no matter what we read in the newspapers, what goes on in the federal government, or really what doesn't go on in the federal government, but it's not going away, it's expanding. Every state will have a medical market very soon. It's not gonna take much longer. And the recreational market is the natural progression of this business right after that. And that's where it's all headed. And I attend the biggest conventions in the country. They go on 2 and 3 times a year. And they started out in 2011 with 750 people in attendance. The last one in Vegas in November had over 20,000 participants and over 500 registered vendors. They took it out of the Rio Hotel where it was for 3 years, and they had to open up the Las Vegas Convention Center for it because it's ginormous. And it's here, and we're here to help educate and help you understand the laws and to move forward.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just had one. I thought that was a very good presentation, a lot of good information. Do you have any information like crime statistics, or is, proportional to usual crime statistics, or anything?
I don't have any with me tonight. I can certainly follow up with you on that. However, what we have seen is that traditionally crime goes down. Actually, I can cite a study within the Los Angeles, California, where they closed about 20 dispensaries, and the crime went up about 20% after these dispensaries were closed. So if you want to look at it from a perspective of, obviously the retail is the facility that gets everybody a little nervous because that's the in your face. But if you take provisioning center or dispensary out of that question that you just asked and put in restaurant, what happens when you have a fully operating restaurant within your community? It's well lit during all operating hours. They have surveillance there, and it's heavily trafficked. And these dispensaries do the same thing. It's just you're substituting the word restaurant for dispensary or provisioning center, as it may be here in the state of Michigan. What we do see, with regards to crime is that it hasn't had an impact. I unfortunately don't have this, but there is another attorney within the state of Michigan that has submitted FOIA requests to a handful of different municipalities who have caregiving ordinances, such as the city of Detroit, Ann Arbor, Lansing, where we do see these provisioning centers, and she specifically asked what were the crime rates before these provisioning centers came and what were they after. They haven't changed. There's no movement, and if anything, I would argue that maybe some of it has gone down because we're starting to see revitalized life in an area that was once abandoned. It's hard. I know it's hard to separate, being that this product has been, illegal and, such it's hard to eliminate old stigmas and antiquated data out of the mix. But what we do see is generally that, yes, the crime rate either goes down or doesn't change.
Thank you.
I can add to that. I know that's true, and I will get you the information. There's an attorney in Michigan that moved back from New York that did the FOIA, Paula Gibbons, and I talked to her 2 nights ago, and she has that information, and it's astounding, the results from the FOIA. So I will use all my efforts to get that to you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
I had a question related to the taxation. The dispensary tax is 3%.
It's 9% total, so it's 6% sales tax and an additional 3% excise tax.
Correct, but the sales tax goes to the state.
The sales tax goes to the
So the
state.
3% is divided by the local community gets 25% of the 3%,
Based on the number of licenses that you have operating in your,
which equals approximately 0.75%.
of,
And
of the
you mentioned
84.
a max of 20,000 per year,
Do you want me to pull the slide back up?
if you wouldn't mind.
Yep, I can do that. Sorry, I pulled it out.
And just to let you know, the petition in 2018 is taxing it 10%.
With what
6% sales and 4 excise then? Oh. Oh, okay.
Right, and I'll see the revenue.
Let's see. Okay, so on this slide here, we're starting out with a potential annual revenue. So Senate Fiscal is anticipating the state sales tax at $837 million.
What slide
Oh.
do you have?
Uh-oh. I'm sorry.
That's all right, if you can just read what you have.
Okay, so the state sales tax is anticipated at $837 million. The estimated excise tax, the 3%, is estimated at $24 million annually. So if you take the $24 million and divide that by 4 for your 25%, that's leaving approximately $6 million to appropriate to a municipality based on the number of licenses they have operating. So if we take the 6 million and divide that by an approximate number of 300 licenses issued, that's where we get our 20,000 per license. Sorry, this isn't.
So is it divided equally among the licenses,
Correct.
regardless of what kind they are or
Correct.
anything like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And the formula's in the package that I sent. If you have an opportunity, it's in the form. I put it
How does this building revitalize a city and a community? You said, yeah, it keep a building from being empty, it'll light it up, but do you have statistics that show that it brought new restaurants, new businesses to a city because you built a marijuana place in the city? I mean, how does that help the community? How does that, especially for Eastpointe, it's a family town, how would that look in our city?
Well, let's.
As a, you know what I'm saying? How
I
would
don't
that
need
look?
statistics. I'm living proof because I've seen it. So let me help you.
Okay.
Warren was one of the first cities to roll out the red carpet to the industry saying, we'll allow you to grow 500 plants in our city as long as you grow in these areas. And guess what areas they took? The areas where the old tool and die companies were, like you have on 9 Mile, John Sam's and all those guys that were there. Those are the buildings in the areas they picked for the industry to get in. Why? Because they were old, they were dilapidated. No one had touched them in 20 years, maybe 30 years. So clients of mine bought a whole bunch of them. And it cost them, on an average, between $200,000 to $500,000 a building. Roofs, parking lots, watering systems, storm drains, flooring, doors, blueprints, engineering, you name it. So they took areas of their city and they revitalized it. The parking lots are now new asphalt. There's new striping. The roofs are fixed. The walls are maintained. They revitalized those areas. And Warren is a friendly community with families in it itself. So am I addressing sort of?
The tax base.
I mean, you talked about it revitalizing that building it was doing business in, but you haven't told me about the new businesses that it brung in that area to where the marijuana, place was. Did
You
it bring
mean-
new restaurants? Did it bring,
Sure.
Okay. So you're speaking specifically to the economic impact that it's going to have
Absolutely.
on other businesses. So I can tell you right now, I have a client who has a dispensary in Detroit, and they've located across from a gas station and a Chinese restaurant. And since this facility has been operational, the gas station and the Chinese restaurant have both tripled their capacity, their revenue, their profit, whatever it might be. And it's an economic foot driver. You've got people that are coming in and they're going to not only stop, say in the provisioning center, but they might be stopping to get their nails done. They'll stop to grab a bite to eat. They're going to get gas. They're going to generate some economic activity for other businesses here within your community, not just themselves. And additionally, if you're not looking at retail, if you're looking at, possibly the other licenses, they're going to be employing locally. They're going to be looking at hiring local contractors, local plumbers, local architects that are going to be designing their buildings. So you've got a lot of different ways that this industry, upon startup, is certainly going to be servicing that building. You've got all the lighting. This is not cheap lighting. You're talking upwards anywhere. I mean, my gosh, you can start at $300,000 and get up to multi-million dollars worth of lighting that these buildings might require. So there's opportunity for other ancillary businesses within your community to work and support the infrastructure here as you move along. So in addition to providing services by contractors and whatnot, you're also providing an economic driver if you allow for provisioning that will generate foot traffic into your community, that will bring them into the restaurants, that will bring them into the gas stations and the nail salons and different areas. So that's where we see an impact.
okay.
And I can help on that too. I represent between Mound and Kelly probably 7 different dispensaries. And guess where 80% of their patients are coming from? They're north of 8 Mile. And the traffic in their stores is constant. And And those people, just like Jen said, go out, and then the employees. Let me focus on the employees. A dispensary will employ between 5 and 10 people, between a security guard if they feel it's necessary, bud tenders, managers, and cashiers. So they'll employ between 5 and 10 people. It's a 7-day-a-week business, generally 9 a.m. to 9 or 10 p.m., and that's per store. That's on the dispensary level. Most of those employees on 8 Mile are coming from the suburbs. Most of them are. In addition to that, they're cultivation centers. A cultivation center that's around 4,000 square feet will employ between 5 and 10 people. It has to, because you work around the plant itself. Moving to a transportation company, if you allow them, it depends on how big they are, but you have to have 2 people per car to transport and travel the money or the plant itself. Processing, again, is probably a 5-person per facility employment basis. The testing, probably you need 5 people per license to work there. So take those numbers and add them up, or based on the number of facilities that you allow in your city. And as you know, you don't want to travel far from work. All of my clients that are on 8 Mile, their employees are not coming from Lansing or from Owasso or somewhere to come down here and work. It's all right here. It's all in your backyard. Detroit stole all your jobs right now. Let's get them back. Bring them back. Bring the jobs back here, and help your community out. That's what's going on all around you right now. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I had a
Thank you.
Chris, this is not to serve as an indication one way or another how the city would go, because quite frankly, I don't know, but could you just touch on the 5 licenses for simplicity purposes? Say the city granted 5 licenses. How are the mechanics, how does the city decide, like, who gets what license? Like, one person can't get all 5 licenses, it has to be separate folks, correct?
Well, that's a triggering mechanism inside the ordinance, and I'll share with you certain ordinances that are written within the state. I'll give you some highlights. Kalamazoo is deciding to do a lotto system, which I think is just wrong to the industry, because they have to go out and buy facilities within the zoned area. So they already did their overlay map. This is where we want you, but we're going to do it on a lotto system. They're the only one in the state of Michigan. It hasn't been enacted yet, but that's how strongly they're moving. They're the only one that's doing that. I think one of the most successful ordinances that I've read and the most fair is Lansing. Lansing has an incredible, high, proficient regulatory scheme. It's a scoring system out of 100 points. And within that, they have all these variables inside of there. And some of them have to do with how long have you been a resident in my city? What have you done in my city? What have you done to help this community in the past? That's just one variable. The other variables were philanthropy. What have you done in this city? What have you not done in this city? So I will get you Lansing. Some early townships did a race. Who's first in line? Come first in line and fill out this application. And Inkster caused 4 lawsuits. They got outside and started standing in line 24 hours before the given date. And then there was a mad rush, and then there was an argument as to who stamped what at what time, who received the application at what time, and then, of course, naturally, all the lawsuits arose from that. Niles, Michigan, December 1st was the deadline, and we helped on an application process there all the way to the Indiana border. A small little town opted in. December 1st was the deadline to provide the application. Inside of that ordinance, it was an RFP. And let me tell you, that was 30 to 40 hours of work. And it was, they raised the bar in these things, because they were a little concerned. They're a smaller community. I think some of them still had reefer madness, and they were worried about it. So they set the bar. So they put in there $250,000 of liquidity. They put in there the type of lights that they wanted to see in their grow houses. They put in there the insurance requirements. They put in their indemnity agreements for the city. Lennox. Lennox has one that, wow, it really goes overboard in protecting the city, but it's in there. And if you if you obtain a facility license, there's no way the city could ever come on in regards to any type of action. Who else? So there are multiple ways, but Lansing probably is the way that you can help select based on your own criteria. You'll make up your own variables. It's a scoring system out of 100 points, and every variable is scored 10, 15 points, 20 points. They even had 5 points in there for how you control the pedestrian walkways and traffics in front of your building. How would you do that so that it doesn't infringe on other drivers and your other neighbors?
So with regard to the transporter license, say a transporter license was granted here in the city, now would that entity have the ability then to transport marijuana from other localities into this city or vice versa or throughout the state? Are there any limitations on that?
No, statewide, and they can transport money and the product. They'll have to have manifestos. However, in the emergency rules, they just came down that if your processing is next door or in the same building, that an employee could actually transport it now, which was smart. I think Laura did a lot of great things in the emergency rules. So if there's 3 buildings in a row and they're all doing processing, dispensary and grow, they wouldn't have to hire a transporter to take it out of that door and bring it in this door. An employee can place it into the tracking system. And then going along, it cost the municipalities $0 out of pocket to regulate this, $0 to enforce it. It's all done out of Lansing. I think they hired 181 people, or they're about to hire 181 people from the enforcement aspect, from the application forward.
And just for purposes of the public, in case they're unaware, if the city would allow, say, 5 different licenses, does that entity come here first, or do they go to the state first to get approval to then apply to that city? How does that work?
Well, some cities have decided that, well, one city did it sort of backwards. They allowed so many licenses to be applied for, and then they gave a provisional license. And then they said, well, now go to the state of Michigan and get your license from the state, and then the first 2 people or 3 people that come back with their approvals will end up having a permanent license. I think that was probably the worst scenario.
It is required for municipal approval first. You have to have that.
Right, oh,
So
you
municipal
mean for the
approval comes
opt-in
first.
itself?
Yeah,
Yes.
You have to have a municipal CFO first before you can apply for state licensure.
Yeah, the opt-in. So what would happen is you would meet and you would decide, yes, we're moving forward, we want to do this, we're going to opt in. The next stage is then the development of your ordinance around all of these issues. And you're fortunate you have a great attorney that there's so many ordinances out there that he can help guide you on selections of clauses, and there's plenty of examples that Jen can give you and I can give you.
Yeah, and there's no limitations on the opt-in, because I know I field several calls a week from people that are interested in whether or not the city's going to grant any of the licenses, and they always say, well, the city needs to do something this year, or else you can't grant those licenses, and I've been repeatedly telling them that's not the case. The city can always opt in at some point in the future. They're not limited to creating an ordinance and opting in 2017.
Actually, that's not true. There's only one more spot left this year, and we're holding it for Eastpointe.
I stand corrected.
There are.
You said I was a good
no-
attorney, but
There are no more. There are no others. There's, plenty of time for you to make decisions. There's a lot of cities that are in the middle of discussions. They opted in and now are, in fact, in this county. They've opted in, but now they're figuring out how to regulate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for
We
allowing us.
appreciate your time.
We do, we really do. Thank you. Have a great day, and we can supplement our record with whatever you need.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll move on to the hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard at this time?
Make it the hearing of the public.
On an average, $1 million apiece. No. In a retail center, they're earning between, I'd say, $12 to $20 an hour. But the ones that are really making the money are the people that are growing the plants. And I can tell you, my clients are paying them probably close to $100,000 a year for a master grower. And then underneath them, somebody that doesn't know everything will probably earn between $50,000 and $70,000 a year. They are really good paying jobs.
They really are quite high paying jobs. And even on a provisionary level, the retail, they're going to employ trustworthy employees and they're willing to pay. This is not minimum wage. These are decent, high paying jobs. Because once they locate a good employee, they're gonna wanna retain that employee and they're gonna incentivize to do so.
Yeah, I don't know anyone paying anywhere close to minimum wage, anywhere.
Nope.
None.
All
All well in excess of $12 an hour for bud tenders, and growers are paying an awful lot of money.
All right, if there are any other questions from the audience, then please meet with the man in the back. His discussion time is over.
Sure.
Thank you.
The mayor's asked that we go in the back.
You can meet in the hallway with him.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard? Mr. Mann.
I found that discussion to be very interesting. As a senior with crippling arthritis, I find that when I go to bed at night, my stomach's like a sewer with all the crap that I put in, all the medication I take every day. I have access to friends, neighbors, and relatives to get into the marijuana if I really want to. I stayed away from it because I'm unsure of how it works, but I'd be more interested in if I knew it was legally done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. In the back. Please state your name.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robert Hagan. I'm a 27-year resident of Eastpointe. I've gone to all the schools here and know some of you individuals on a personal level. Came here today to, as I found out that this was going to be a presentation that was going to be going on for the city of Eastpointe. I just want to make a couple of quick points. One, this is a prime time for the city of Eastpointe to be able to engage into this type of industry, okay? There's so much opportunity that is available. Now, some of the things that were being said by these individuals, I have seen personally, some I haven't seen because I haven't been at that type of level when dealing with medical marijuana. I am a medical marijuana user and a card holder, and I have been for a while. I've been to, it's hard to actually get to all the dispensaries that are on 8 Mile and over into the Detroit area, but there are several. There are hundreds of dispensaries, okay? And not all of them are created equal. But the biggest thing that gives me a sense of relief is the regulation of it, all right, and the revenue that it brings in, all right? There's so much money to be made in this. Now, the one thing that it's going to be the biggest problem for the city of Eastpointe is that we are a family town. Ever since I was a little kid, it's always been a family town. Back in Mayor Harvey Curley days, it was a family town. We don't have huge industrial areas that are available like the city of Warren does. Warren's huge, okay? That's one of the things that kind of limits us in what we can do as far as maybe the growing aspect of things. But the sale aspect is more than available. Now, that brings me into my second point, is when it comes to the regulation of medical marijuana. Not only does it give us a foothold into the industry, which is now going to boom, and on top of that is going to be recreationally legalized. It's not a matter if, it's when. 360,000 signatures, mine being one of them, were submitted to the state of Michigan. Recently, everything within the last 30 to 60 days, they were submitted. And now they have to be gone through and approved. Now, with that, we can already have everything set in place, so that way when it does become recreational, we're already a step ahead of the game.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay. Last part is going to be the regulation of it. I have a neighbor that sells out of his home and grows out of his home legally per the state of Michigan for the caregiving laws. There's a lot of traffic. I don't know who these people are. There's a smell, which I don't mind, all right? But I feel much more comfortable if it was done in a regulated area governed by our city, by our city council, than to have it in somebody's home 2 doors down from me. Thank you.
You're welcome to come back at the second hearing of the public if you'd like. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Sir.
Gary Myron of Eastpointe. My question is, when you grow it here, where are you going to sell it all out everywhere else? It will produce a lot of traffic. There's a lot of jobs out there now. We can't fill them. So why can we fill all these? Lenawee County, Morenci, they're planning on building a factory there, growing everything there, and they're planning on selling everything out and about because it's a small town. They're in the works of doing that. You know, just what's going to happen when you start growing it here? I mean, where are you going to sell it? Because it's not all going to be sold here. And the state of Michigan's going to make a ton of money. Just like everything else, the state of Michigan, all it is about the money. Auto insurance, it's all about the money and the lawyers. That's why they won't lower it. That's the way I feel. That's my question. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And if you had some questions, they're still out there.
That's what I'm going to ask.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Mr. Duran?
Hello, good evening. My name is Clarence Duran, resident of Eastpointe. I'm here to talk about the DOJ lawsuit. And like I said before, and I plan to keep on talking about it until the matter's settled. So you plan on seeing me here quite a bit. They plan on suing the city of Eastpointe, and I feel that the basis of their lawsuit is wrong. I don't believe that what the things that they say about Eastpointe that is racist or any such thing. Maybe a matter happened or something like that, but the way they like to blanket everybody, I don't think that's the case. And like I said before, the basis, the main point of their lawsuit of what will happen if it does happen and they break up the city of Eastpointe to where the council members are elected by districts is accountability. That's the basic thing right there. And so I would like to ask each council member, not that the question needs to be answered, because I know what the answer is. Would we allow our police officers to have less accountability or more accountability? Is that something that you would want less of or more? And same thing for all the other areas. And to me, the answer is no. And by you being the leaders, I've always heard that you should lead by example. And if that's not going to be the example, what would others under you expect? Because you won't hold yourself accountable to more and be more accountable, then to me, it would be hard to hold someone else more accountable than yourselves. And right now, as at large basis, you're being held more accountable because you're more accountable to more people. And to me, that's just the way to go. I mean, I realize that the DOJ is kind of shining a shiny little object around to people saying, look what's happening, look what's happening. That's not what's happening. That's in their minds of what's happening. But when I spoke to them at my house, I asked them, I said, how did Eastpointe even get on your radar? This is such a small town. That's something that they didn't want to answer at that time, but I'm sure I'll find out the answer. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Durant. Anyone else wish to be heard?
My name is Linda Duran. Eastpointe resident. Actually, I just have a question regarding an article in the East Sider, and actually it's directed to Ms. Owens. The quote in the paper was, "To be a city councilwoman of a city I couldn't live in as a child. Now my children can at 9 years old. It's very powerful to me." And my question is, what exactly did you mean by that? And obviously I know we're not answering questions at this point, but I would like to have an answer to that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duran. Anyone else wish to be heard? Mr. Jakubiec.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, Administration. I'm here to talk about the aesthetically designed landscaping features. I'd like to rewrite that and make it sound like aesthetically designed landscaping features and business-friendly solutions. I personally think the way this ordinance is written now creates a hostile business environment, and it's just the first 2 paragraphs. You don't see what we see at our meetings at the Planning Commission. We tell, people come before us and want to put a business here, and we tell them, well, you got to make your business look like a nursery. They get angry. One gentleman was standing here one night, and when we told him what he had to do to his property, he leaned into the mic and he said, "I'm not doing that." Is that business-friendly environment? No, it's not. Just to give you an example of some of the things that have taken place, this past year, we had a business come before us on 9 Mile. Was a used car lot. Wasn't a big one. When he came before us, he told us he had to put a cement wall in. $32,000. And then the city wanted him to put landscaping. Now the problem was his property was fully developed, all concrete. And the city wanted him to put in landscaping. Another $20,000. Then I pointed out that he had a sewer problem in the middle of his parking lot. I says, water collects there when it rains. I says, there's a problem. He dug it up, another $12,000. So we felt, the guy's getting beat up. He was never told about the sewer problem. So we waived the landscaping, okay, to be business friendly. So he left, and then we discussed it. If we have another business come before us where the property is fully developed, Mr. Lubick pointed out, why don't we just have him put some trees someplace else in the city instead of digging up his parking lot? Everybody on the Planning Commission agreed, okay? So then I find out just this week that the city went behind us after we passed a resolution to waive the landscaping, went there and forced him to put a whole bunch of landscaping in, between $20,000 and $30,000 worth. That's not being business friendly. That creates a hostile environment for business. And it's all because of this ordinance. First 2 paragraphs. Let's move on. Oh yeah, I talked to the owner's brother. He has a friend who wants to buy the property on 8 Mile where the nursery is, or used to be. And he's talking with the owner. Well, then he finds out from this gentleman that owns the parking as the used car lot what the city did to him. Guess what? He's not coming here. Okay? We can't have that. We need to attract business. Let's move on to the business over on Kelly and 9 Mile. Fresh Choice, okay? He's putting in Secretary of State's office. He was short about 24 parking spaces. The planner said, well, you have to put some trees in your lot too. Well, wait a minute. Every tree causes a parking place to disappear. So I said, why are we doing that? I says, the 2 ordinances are in conflict with one another. There's got to be a better solution. So somebody said, he's got 7-foot easement in front of his property that runs the full width of where he's at. Why don't we ask him to put trees and bushes there? It makes his lot look nice and makes 9 Mile look nice. Everybody agreed. He was happy. He says, I'll do that. A business-friendly solution to a bad problem. Okay? Now, I want you to come up with ordinances that bring businesses here. Okay? This doesn't do it. And there's a problem. The way it reads right now, if a business doesn't like this ordinance, they can go this way. Roseville, St. Clair Shores, and Clinton Township does not have this ordinance. I found that out 6 months ago, and I told everybody at planning, and then the planner went and checked. They don't have the same ordinance. They don't have anything like it. So anyway, also, we're not using this ordinance the way it should be, the way it's written. And we're not treating every business the same way. Give you a quick example. The dialysis area, the center over on Ken and Kelly, they have, let's see, 88 plus parking spaces. They have 3 trees in a parking lot and 12 bushes. But they have a whole bunch of trees and bushes on the perimeter. That's where I'd like to see the landscaping. Let's look at another one, T-Mobile. No trees, no bushes. CVS, no trees, no bushes in the parking lot. It's all on the perimeter. Okay, let's look at Milestone. No trees, no bushes. And then Michigan First Credit Union. They have 108 parking spots. They only have 9 trees. So we're not using the ordinance as it's written. So why do we even have it here?
So your time is up.
All right.
Mr. Jacobian.
We need to get rid of it. Please, just get rid of it.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to be heard? In the back. And please state your name.
Hello, my name is Adele Tome from Eastpointe. First, I wanted to say about the marijuana business. Please don't let the pothead agenda sway your opinion. Do your own research. We don't need. If you bring this business here, you might as well change Eastpointe back to East Detroit. Down on 8 Mile over there, there's a business called 420 Dank. I mean, some of the names for these pothead businesses are just disgraceful, and so just please do your own research. We don't need that here. I mean, 5 to 10 jobs. I mean, even the lawyer, when he was trying to discuss it, he was confusing himself about how to get the license, who can apply, who can do this. I mean, we have enough problems here. That's one. Number 2, 3 minutes to discuss things. I mean, by the time you breathe, that's not enough to. It should be at least 5 minutes, at least. The third thing is, I wrote down 12 businesses in Eastpointe that are vegan friendly that people can visit. Number 1 is Five Guys. They offer a veggie sandwich with fries, and they have their own vegan grill. Number 2 is Royal Popcorn. They have vegan cheese popcorn. Number 3 is Legends Coney Island. They have a veggie burger. You can get a side of garlic bread, a Greek pita, or plain white toast. 4 would be Shawarma Express. They have rice galaba with veggies, fries, pita bread, and something called fattoush. Number 5 is China Walk on Kelly Road. They have something called Chow Fun. It's gluten-free, it's vegan, and it's really good. Number 6, I'm not sure if Pizza Hut is considered Eastpointe or if that's past the line, but if you do visit there, they have a vegan breadsticks. You just gotta say no parm with it, and you can add Cajun seasoning if you like that. Wendy's has a baked potato and a very good salad. I'm not sure if Checkers is past the Eastpointe line, but if it isn't, they have a fry burger. You can ask for no meat, extra grilled onions, lettuce, and tomatoes. Burger King has not many people know they actually have a veggie burger. It's just like a Whopper, and you can get that with fries or onion rings. Okay. McDonald's, you can say no meat, add onions and pickles, and they have crispy onions now there. 11 would be Salvatore Scalaponi. They have pasta with garlic and grilled veggies, house-made chips, and Italian bread. And the last is Little Caesars. They have crazy bread. You just got to ask for no parm, extra garlic sauce, and their butter is not natural, it's artificial, which means it's cruelty-free. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Cassandra Ford, and I live on Juliana in Eastpointe. And what I would like to see, I think I got up and asked about this before, but is that we have some kind of educational program about racism in Eastpointe. Because what I believe is happening is people do not understand what it is. There's a lot of misunderstanding about what that really is. And if we get some kind of program, maybe at the library, maybe at some of these other places where we can actually talk about this issue and talk about what it really is. I don't know if that's something the city council can do, or is that something we can get the teachers who teach these programs in the universities to come out and talk about. But I think it's something we need in the city.
Thank you, ma'am.
Town Clown to Redmond. Ms. Lucido, you know what address I'm talking about? Right now, my emotions are very, very thin. I spent a week putting up over 2,000 Christmas lights on the front of my house. Turned them on last night. They were on at 1:20 when I shut them off, when I finished putting my tree up. I get up this morning to find them ripped off the bushes, some of them completely destroyed. I had over 700 lights that were literally ripped in half. The house next door, I'm done with the car repairs, okay? Yesterday morning, I woke up, 3 cars parked in front of my house. He had one towed over there Sunday afternoon when I was outside finishing up the lights. Okay, I'm done with this. Ms. Lucido has seen it. I'm done with this. I don't know where else to go. Okay, the car repair crap has got to stop. It has got to stop. If I wanted to live next to an auto repair shop, I would have moved closer to Marola Chevrolet. I'm done with the intimidation. This has been going on since September. And I'm done with the intimidation. I'm done with having people looking in my windows, putting the chairs up against the door so they can see what's in my house. I'm done with it. I filed a vandalism report this morning with the lights. This afternoon, I spent the rest of the day taking the lights down. I'm done. Thank you.
Sir? Sir, before you leave, Ms. Lucido, do you have his name and his address so we can follow up on that?
I do have his name and address.
No one should have to go through that. So I want to be sure that the police over here, would you be sure that he has your name and your address and the time of all those incidents? Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else? Seeing none, the first hearing of the public is closed. Move on to the approval of the minutes from the November 21st meeting that have corrections already in front of you.
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of November 21st, 2017 with the just spelling changes that are on the sheet we got here. And then Mr. Albright gave me one more change on page 2 where his update is, the sentence says, well, it's the very end, and city is in process of preparing an injunction with their expert. He said injunction should just be report. And that's all the changes.
Support.
Move and support. Any further corrections? Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
We have no scheduled hearings on 2 items under unfinished business. The first one is the second reading and the adoption of ordinance number 1146 relates to general parking requirements of the codified ordinances of the city of Eastpointe. Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I motion to give second reading to 2, and adopt ordinance number 1146, which amends Chapter 50, zoning, Article 3, general standards, Section 50-220, general parking requirements.
Support.
Move and support. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
No.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Item B is the second reading and the adoption of ordinance number 1147 related to the amendment, screening and landscaping. Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to give second reading to and adopt ordinance number 1147, which would amend Chapter 50, zoning, Article 20, screening and landscaping, Section 50-235, aesthetically designed landscaping features.
Support.
Move and support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
No.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Move on to reports from administration. We'll start with our acting city manager, Mr. Marucci.
Two items, Mayor and members of council. First is that the separate yard waste collection will end on December 15th. So you will not see, if you use a craft paper bag or a can with a compost label, please have it out by that date because there will be no separate pickup after that date. And the second item I want to report on, which has been added to the agenda, is the rescheduled audit workshop that will be held on December 19th. I'm assuming probably at 6 o'clock or earlier, depending on what the council decides. And those are the only two items.
Any questions for Mr. Marucci? All right, let's move on. We have no finance director today. We wish him well. Let's move on to Mr. Albright,
Thank
city
you.
attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. An update regarding dangerous building hearings. The city attorney's office, working in conjunction with city administration, has scheduled several dangerous building hearings. Those hearings are scheduled to take place here at City Hall on January 11th, beginning at 1 o'clock. I'll make sure that the council has copies of the notice letters for each of the hearings that go out to the property owners. And council's also in receipt of our monthly status report for the month of December. I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Anyone have any questions?
I don't have any questions related to your report, but I did want to ask and see if council would be interested in seeing this, getting an opinion on, in terms of when we sell homes and having a requirement for a residency. Not that I expect that we can force someone to live somewhere, but I think we would be able to sell a home with the contingency that if you don't live there and you go to sell it or something like that, that it goes back to the city or we get right of first refusal for, you know, a certain cost or something. I'd like to see what the options are there because it would make a big difference in what direction we go forward with an ordinance, so.
I'd like to get the review to see whether that's legally possible.
So so this would be a tax reversion property that the city has acquired?
That's what I was interested in because we've been talking about a policy, so.
And the city would be selling this property to a private party with a condition that it is to be owner occupied for a period of time?
Correct.
Okay, and
That would
then,
be my thought.
That was our original resolution in 2012, and with the right of first refusal to employees. If it turns out that we don't really have a way to enforce that at all, then we have to figure out a different way to go forward.
may have to be a provision that would be put in a deed, for instance, but we'll certainly explore that and see what the legalities of something like that would be. Sure.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I can jump in, my brother bought a house in Roseville, and I believe his stipulation was to live there 10 years, and he got free property taxes the first year. If you moved out before that, then you lose your free first-year property taxes. I could try and check on that, but I believe it was something to that effect.
That provision actually wasn't in a recorded deed, was it?
I have no idea. Yeah, I don't know about those sort of details.
That's all I had.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything?
No.
Well, let's move on to new business, and our first item is the approval of the design and construction engineering services related to pavement reconstruction program from the 2017-18 CDBG. And this would relate to Johnson resurfacing from 10 Mile to Haas.
I'm happy with going forward with this, but before making a motion, I had a question on this, because the amount that's approved in the motion is the full amount of the project, and I would imagine what we would actually approve would actually just be the engineering costs. So,
I thought maybe we could just enter the engineering costs specifically as part of the total.
do you mean subtract them, or?
That we would be approving the engineering cost of 118.
That's the community grant funds being used.
15 plus 32.5 plus 37.50? Or is it just, well,
Well, it would be the
Just the
design
15.
plans, the specs, and I think it's identified on the last page.
It is. It's really engineering, construction, inspection, and testing. That's what the engineers will perform at this time. And obviously, construction, inspection, testing only and after a bid is
Correct.
awarded.
So it's 1532.5 and 37.50.
it's just an estimate right now, right? Because we don't have the
It is an estimate because it's based on the cost of construction as well.
Right.
Is there any way you can do a two-phase construction? So we use the funds that we are granted on half of the project and use the other funds for the next year for another part of the project?
Well, you're only doing the 1 year, the 17 and 18. You're only allocating just the 1 year.
That's why I said split the project up so we don't have.
I don't.
Is there a way you can do that?
And I don't see how you would stop. You always can stop at some point, but I think this project is so small anyways that to break it up even smaller than what it is, that one block area, I don't think is worth at this point in time to
We
do
have
it.
more funds coming in for 18 and 19.
All right, but this was about to be spent, and then we're getting another one coming up. And then the project has to be done next year, and when it's better weather anyway. So, if we split it up, they can do all of it at one time.
You said
You
another
split
one
it up.
coming up? What?
Well, on the next part of new business, we're scheduling the public hearing for.
Oh, it's for this money?
It's next year's allocation. You're only scheduling public hearing for next year's allocation.
Right, but that's what we're about to approve, can we split that up so that we won't have to pay the $208,000?
Oh, you mean you want to use next year's money also on top of this year's money for this project?
Exactly.
The only, in my opinion, concern with that would be, I'd rather get two projects done, and even if we split it up, we have a ton of streets that need to be repaired.
Yes.
I mean, there's, an overwhelming number of streets that need to be replaced.
And there's also a deadline on spending 17, 18 money.
Right.
Because 18, 19, is Linda, I can't see her.
Still hiding.
Okay, Linda, what's the deadline for?
These are CDBG projects, you cannot break them up.
No, I understand.
Money was given for this year's project and that's it.
I understand, but 18, 19 money is available when?
It doesn't even get approved until next year in July.
That's what I thought.
It's supposed to be approved by July, but HUD didn't even approve these ones until November.
Right, so timing, packaging the 2 years together doesn't appear to be feasible to do a larger project or two different blocks.
Well, especially if HUD doesn't approve next year's allocation till
Exactly.
November, then you're not gonna get this job done, and you're time-bound by using the money.
Exactly.
So if you don't use the money in the time frame that they've allotted, then you lose it.
Right, money has to be used by December 31st of 18 for this year's money. And if you
Right.
don't use it by then the county gets all upset because we're giving money back to HUD that could have gone to another project in another city then if we didn't want to spend it.
No, I'm not saying don't spend it, I'm saying divide the project up so we don't have to put government funds in. Someone told me that we could do it.
In our application for the funds, everything's been approved by HUD for as it is right now.
Okay.
It's already been approved by HUD. We cannot go back and change that now. We
If
can
you-
go
if
back
you-
and change what HUD has approved.
Okay, because someone told me differently that you can, if you go back and talk to the funder and let them know what you're doing, they might, so, they might reconsider. So I was told that by a person that writes grants for major federal companies all around.
Were you saying though next year's wouldn't be available till November then, so we'd be skipping the whole
Well,
summer
they don't
to use
approve
them?
it. They're supposed to
Yeah.
approve them by July 1st.
Mhm.
They have, their timelines, but HUD was way behind this year and didn't
Yeah.
approve. That's why this is coming forward now, because they just approved it and Gloria is now moving forward with the project. He can't move forward with the project, he can't do any bid outs until HUD approves it.
Do you want to do your motion? Sounds like we need to keep them all together.
Need to keep the construction cost with it?
Because that's the way HUD's approved.
Is that how we've done our motions in the past?
Right.
Did you have a previous one? I didn't know, I guess, because it's like an estimate right now.
I didn't look up a previous one. I think that normally, because even if we were to approve this, the way the motion's written, it makes it sound like we're approving $326,000 for engineering, which we're not really.
No.
And when we get someone for construction, it seems like we have to approve that after it goes out to bid anyway. So I was just thinking,
Because the one is the city's local street fund, you can always move that and pay that at a different time and just approve the HUD expenditure.
At this point in time, as was mentioned, the $15,000 is what AEW is looking for to complete the construction drawing and specifications. The normal bidding process will follow, and you will award a bid, assuming that there is a low bidder that we can afford for construction. So he wrapped this up just to give you an idea. If
what
you,
we should expect coming down
here's
the
what you should expect to see.
yeah,
Correct.
and, so if we should be able to just move forward if we approve the 15,000, right? And
Yes,
not-
that's
and
what they
it
need to
won't hold
complete.
anything up?
No, won't hold anything up.
Okay.
You literally have to approve the engineering in order to complete the plans and specifications to keep going on the process.
All right. Well, with that, I will make a motion to authorize engineering firm Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick Incorporated to prepare design, plan specifications, and provide construction, design plans, specifications to the City of Eastpointe's 2017-18 CDBG pavement reconstruction program, Johnson resurfacing, 10 Mile to Haas, CDBG project number C706-2A in the amount of $15,000 as presented in the proposal from the firm dated November 20th, 2017, and authorize the acting city manager to execute all necessary documents related to the contract.
Support?
Move the support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Item B, to schedule the public hearing for the fiscal year 2018 CDBG applications. Can we have a motion, please?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to schedule a public hearing on the City of East Pointe's fiscal year 2018 Community Development Block Grant application in the amount of $139,523 for Tuesday, January 16th, 2018 at 7 p.m. in the City Hall Council Chambers for the purpose of receiving public comment.
Support?
Move and support it. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Item C is amendment number 3 to the water service contract. Do we have a motion, please?
Madam Mayor, I motion to approve amendment number 3 to the water service contract between the Great Lakes Water Authority and the City of Eastpointe and authorize the mayor and acting city manager to execute the amendment on behalf of the city of Eastpointe.
We have support.
I'll support that, and if Mr. Marucci could briefly talk about this so the public knows, and so it's not very clear if they read the whole packet, I'm sure.
I will. This is an amendment to the agreement that the city has that was entered into originally in 2009 between then Detroit Water and Sewerage Department and the city of Eastpointe for the purchase of water. Every 5 years, there's a reopener clause for one or either party to reexamine the rates, the value. When I say the rates, the values in terms of water consumption, pressures, service points, whatever the case may be, and to adjust those accordingly. Since the 2009, the rate structure has changed for Detroit that they charge us. It used to be almost totally based on consumption of water, but consumption of water has been going down considerably for Detroit Water and Sewerage Department, now the GLWA, the Great Lakes Water Authority, for years. So right now, our water rate is approximately 60% fixed. So come July 1 of 2018, what that simply means is if we don't buy one drop of water, we're going to be billed 60% of what we're paying this year because the base cost is so large for them. So we've looked at that. As you can tell, I want to get to the correct page. In terms of the attachment, if you go to Table 2, it's the third amended Exhibit B, Table 2. It's the second from last page of the attachment. You'll notice what's been happening to the two greatest influence on our water rate are the max day and the peak hour, because that's what they have to perform to. Literally, other than that max day and peak hour, if no one buys any water, they really don't care. But that's what, when spigot goes on at your house, that's what you have to do. As you can tell, we were quite a bit higher in 2008 when they were looking at 100% consumption in terms of what your bill was based on. As you can tell, we've ratcheted that back and ratcheted it back, and in 5 years, we'll probably ratchet it back again. So we've gone from, as you can see, from 5.40 million gallons a day in terms of how much we bought in a day in 2008. We believe for the next 5 years, we'll buy about 3.7, no more than 3.7 million gallons of water a day. And with peak hour, it's the same way. That's the rate at one particular time, the greatest rate. And in 2008, approximately 9 years ago, it was 8.65 million gallons a day. And we now believe that we will need no more than 5.5 million gallons a day. And again, the same thing if you look at the previous table from 2009, what our annual projected volume was at 159,000. It's now, we've ratcheted back to, we believe it'll be in the area this year for 95,000 and next year about 113,600. Those two really have no impact in terms of what we pay annually for our water rates. It's really based on the two that I mentioned previously on table number 2. So I don't know if that's a helpful explanation. It's a very complicated matter. And it's something that, again, you only visit once every 5 years, but we visit it every year in terms of water rate increases that are typically passed on.
But so the main point, though, of changing this is, as you said, we'd probably spend, if rates from GLWA stay the same, we'd roughly be paying them $138,000 less over the course of the fiscal year.
The two basic assumptions were if rates stay the same next year and we buy the same amount of water come July 1 next year as we're going to buy this year, we should spend approximately $138,000 less. Okay. Of course, that's just a way to give you an idea of what these changes in these two values mean to us. Rates are going to go up. It's a guaranteed. Come February, they'll roll out their rate package with the proposed rates, and usually those are also the finally adopted rates that happen.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
We have a motion on the table. Any other questions?
I was looking at, you said we're amending number 3. Did you show us, because I didn't see in here the original contract where what we were changing. I don't know if it was in here.
The two biggest things that you're changing are what are on page, the third amended exhibit, table 2, is we're changing, as you can see, in terms of max day and peak hour. That's changing in 2017 from the existing 4.0 to 3.7, and from 6.10 peak hour to 5.50. The other points are some engineering changes that the engineer came up with that have changed our internal system. And I think there were, that's the basic things on the engineering drawings. The other items, projected annual volume and minimum annual volume, those are just throw-in numbers. They have almost no impact on our rates. But that's what's changing. In terms of any of the other languages, nothing is changing, only these exhibits.
So the original contract was done in 2008.
Yes.
And the other amendments were 2010 and 13.
All right.
And Mr. Kleinfeld sent you amendment number 2 from 2013.
I didn't get that today.
That was.
I tried to send it to everyone this morning. I wasn't sure if the attachments were working because
Mine arrived.
Mine open.
Okay.
I didn't get it, so I can't.
The only points of substance are the max day and the peak hour. That's the only
Right,
thing that's...
you're saying then the only changes on that page, essentially?
Exactly. There may be some trivial ones. There's no changing in terms of the language, only in these attachments. And part of these attachments are the engineering drawings, where we caught a couple errors, and we had also made some improvements, because in the year 2013, the PRV was different, the one that we own, and also around the same time, there's a PRV added at 8 and Kelly on the GLWA line that runs down the 8-mile median.
That Detroit added.
So what were, so there are other changes then? I was trying to compare.
In the drawings.
There may be some other changes in the
Just
drawings.
for the PRV
The
that.
PRV, there may be, there was an error in terms of where one of the emergency connections was, and that was caught, but nothing of substance. And it's only changes that have occurred to either system's water system, or either entity's water system in the last 5 years. So that, again, like anything else, you update your drawings, so that way they know where our connections are at and we know where their connections are at. But in terms of substantive changes, it's the peak hour and the max day. And I think we also identified the one property that we serve outside of town for water service.
And there's some talk, and I think I sent it to you, that GLWA is going to do away with the peak hour charges.
I'd be shocked if they do, because that's the big, that's the biggest, that's where they really go.
Because they're losing so much money with people that have built reservoirs.
Exactly.
To capture the water when it's at the lowest rate, and then to send it out on their own during the.
That would be important to know before we build a reservoir.
And that's why we haven't done that.
And that's one of the
before I
reasons why
could.
we haven't.
Right, that's the reason we haven't done it, because we wanted to get this amendment approved. And really, this is a race, I think this is a race to the bottom. Everyone wants to decrease their peak hour and their max day flow. That's critical, because if you don't know this, but from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., you can flow as much water as you want in terms of that's when people fill their reservoir. They don't care about max hour, or max day and peak hour at that point in time. So that's why we haven't touched our reservoirs. We want to see what happens here. And what's happening is, as people are saving that $138,000, assuming no one else does anything else, they're going to have to obtain that from the other 120-some customers, is what happens, because their fixed costs are their fixed costs. So we race, and then next year, as people reopen their contracts, they're going to try to one-up us as well. So it's that race of who can do the most to make their system efficient.
Okay, are we ready to take the vote?
Yeah.
Please take the roll.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Item D is a discussion on the city manager search process. And Linda was requesting that we set dates.
Yes.
I believe Linda wanted us to pick the people we would interview on January 3rd, or at that meeting. That's fine with me if that's what council members want to do.
So do you want to do that next week then?
No,
So January 3rd to pick the people we want to interview. Because Linda's going to be out of town next week.
I either wanted to do it next week, or next meeting, or the one after that anyway, so the 3rd's fine by me.
All right,
then
and we don't need a motion on that, so we'll just tell Linda that we'll be doing that on January 3rd.
But do you want to
Well, how are
discuss a
we?
date for doing the actual interviews now? So Linda has that when we pick our candidates on the 3rd.
The following council meeting, which I believe is the 20,
That's the 16th.
will that work out, Linda? Do you think 2 weeks would be enough? Where is she?
Yeah, I don't see a problem, unless.
2 weeks would be enough to set up point.
From Steve Chiolas that we cannot Skype them here.
Okay.
The system will not let us Skype.
Okay,
So we would have to fly in out of towners.
okay.
Or you could do it in the conference room and do the
We've,
phone interview.
we've done interviews in our conference room one time. That's how we interviewed.
We have conference capabilities, so we can do that. We've got council
Well, we really-
phones, conference phones, so.
Why don't we see who we choose, whether they're in town or out of town on January 3rd?
Then also, I mean, how many are we bringing in person? Wouldn't be very many either, right?
I think we have to
So I think
decide that on the 5th.
Well, how many should we eliminate it down to bring here on the 5th? Like, how many favorites should we bring? Should it be like 3 or 5?
Generally, we usually bring 5.
5, okay.
We narrow it down to 5.
Now we're going to try and go right from how many we have to, 29 to 5, then all at once. Is that how everyone?
And it may be that you don't like any of the 5 that you choose, and you have to bring in others.
No, I mean, not to interview, but just as we pick ours, are we, I guess, how are we going about selecting those 5 also?
The 5 that we like as a majority of the best, right?
Correct.
Right,
Our
so-
top 5, so like if our top 5, then if you have the same, if 3 of us have the same one for number 1, then obviously they would be one of the candidates that we would interview.
Right, so I'm just asking, how are we are we doing that the same way we've done appointments, where we've done top 3 and whoever wins the top 3 we've appointed? I mean, not for exactly like that,
Right.
but I'm saying how, so we'd all pick a top 5 and then the top 5 out of our top 5s
We would interview.
would be the final 5 and we'd interview them.
Yeah.
I figured we were coming up with that now and then
Yeah,
scheduling
yeah.
it, right? Yeah.
I'm fine with, and speaking of scheduling the actual interviews, I think on the 3rd, we'll figure out the 5 we want to interview. And then I think we could just let Linda figure out what their availability is. I guess I'd like to make sure it's all on the same day, so that no one has the benefit of knowing what happened with another applicant's interview,
And
but.
actually, because of the interviewing process, in the past, we've done it on a Saturday. And we have a couple of the interviews in the morning and a couple in the afternoon.
So maybe once we get our 5, if Linda could find out if they're all available on one day, then we can schedule it after that.
Because very often you'll find a person that doesn't want their current employer to know, and this always works out a little bit better.
Yeah, we could do that.
Then
We
they
could
don't
do
have to take a
Saturday.
day off.
Yes.
Well, if you do it on a Saturday,
Right. That's what I'm
that's
saying,
worked
too.
out really well, and it has to be a public meeting as well. so-
Right. No, I agree with you. Yeah, I think Saturdays sounds good to me.
So I guess we should just all be prepared with our top 5s on January 3rd?
Correct.
Okay.
How are we breaking ties? We'll figure that out then, if there are any. Because what if we all pick, there's 29, what if we all pick 5 different candidates?
We're just going to
Yeah.
figure that out then.
So probably,
It's called discuss.
well, come prepared maybe with more than your top 5, then we'll
Have
just,
some alternatives, just in case.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that you should have a top 5 and maybe 2 alternatives.
sure. And then just say we'll do the 5 at first, see if it works out. If it doesn't, then
Correct.
we can keep going further or something like that. Okay.
Okay, Linda, is that enough?
Yes, the only thing you'll need to do is when you discuss your candidates, you'll have to do it by number of where to look, because so many have requested confidentiality. Once they're set to be interviewed, then we can release the names.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and item E, I would guess. You didn't want to discuss any further on the medical marijuana tonight?
I wasn't planning on it.
I wasn't planning on it.
Okay. And then the next item is to reschedule the audit. So we would need a motion for that.
Sure, Madam Mayor, I'll motion to reschedule the audit to December 19th at 6 PM.
Support.
It's been motioned and approved. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
I should say motion is supported. Well, let's move on to payroll and bills.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve payment of the bills in the amount of $1,753,552.83.
Support?
Move supported. Any discussion on any of these? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. With that, we move to the second hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard at this time? Sir?
Robert Hagan, 27-year resident of Eastpointe. I know everybody's marijuanaed out. I understand completely. The only other thing I didn't get to say from the last time I spoke is that one of the things that has to be taken into consideration, I don't think we're going to be able to grow here in the city of Eastpointe. I don't think that's going to be able to happen, but we do have the option to sell and open up business that way for anybody that may be interested. Now, just take into consideration, my neighbor who grows and sells out of his home is 4 blocks away from a school, 2 blocks away from a church. Those are your kids or your friends' kids that are walking by that house, don't even know it, okay? Versus having something like that in an industrial or commercial area for it to be sold versus out of somebody's house. Just makes logical sense to me. And the only other last thing I wanted to touch on briefly is that thanks but no thanks for the hike in my water bill. It is terrible. I used to be able to spend $45, $48, no more than $50 for 2 people in my household. It's now $90 a month for the same amount of water. $90 a month. I want to get some sort of septic system if I could, so I don't have to pay sewage anymore. Where I'm getting however many thousands of gallons of water I'm using, I don't know, but nothing's changed. But my bill has, it has doubled, and it is killing my other bills right now. So I was not here for that vote, but from what I'm told, there's one person that said no, and everybody else voted yes for the increase. Thanks, but no thanks, I don't want it. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Sir, you want to finish your report?
Adele Toma. One thing I wanted to say is I forgot to mention that about the water increase. Yeah, I mean, that's horrible. I mean, people are barely surviving enough. And then I did a check on the water that I have. It's filled with fluoride, chemicals. I mean, when you guys are voting yes for these things, how about, like, let's check what's in the water. It's full of fluoride. It's full of chlorine. It's full of all these stuff that you're showering with. I mean, our water is basically poison. I mean, it's almost like just take a bunch of ice mountains, put it on your shower, and heat it up, and then take a shower with that. It'd be so much more cleaner. I mean, you're showering in other people's waste. I mean, it's really disgusting when you think about it, and it's increased on top of it. That's one thing. And the second thing about the medical marijuana I want to mention real quick is people in China that eat dogs and cats, they claim that, the men claim that when they eat these dogs, it gives them a sex increase. It boosts their testosterone. Well, the people that smoke marijuana are saying now, you know, they get a medical clearance and they say, oh, it helps me with this or it helps me with that. Well, it's the same thing that people in China are saying by eating dogs. You know, I think it's a placebo. It's all in your head. You know, I'm going to get high. Oh, it's going to help my headache. I think it's totally wrong. It's very controversial, but in my opinion, it's totally wrong. And like I said, driving on 8 Mile and 7 Mile, 420 Dank. I mean, some of these names, it's like, are you kidding me? And I can't imagine turning in downtown Eastpointe and there's a 420 Dank here, going and get your marijuana. I mean, you drive on the road, half the people are drunk. Now they're going to be drunk and smoking weed. I mean, and just the smell of weed is just disgusting. I mean, it's crazy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to be heard? All right, the second hearing of the public is closed. Move on to mayor and council reports. We'll start with Mr. Kleinfeld.
I guess I will start with my thoughts on the medical marijuana. Thank you to the individuals who came here and gave us a presentation today. It never hurts us to have more information. For those of you watching at home, I would encourage you to come out maybe at our next meeting to voice your thoughts, because I actually am very curious to know how residents feel about this issue. I don't want to open any facilities that are painted bright green and are called the dank drive-through like I had seen before. So I'm looking at the ordinance and evaluating how much control we can put over facilities before making any decisions on that. So I want to know what residents think on that issue. And other than that, I hope to see residents out tomorrow at the tree lighting. I'm sorry, Joe, what time do doors open here when they can come in?
I believe it's 6:30, the event at 7.
Okay, so come up here at 6:30. I believe there will be donuts and cider and singing and lighting up the tree. And then I also want to thank the reserve officers. A number of us went to a dinner on Saturday. It was a lot of fun, and it was nice to get to honor some of the people who volunteer for our community. So it was a really nice event. I was really happy they invited us, and I hope to go to it again in the future. And that's all I have.
Mrs. Lucido.
The only thing I have, is just, I hope I see everyone tomorrow at the tree lighting. It's usually a really fun family event. Hopefully everyone makes it out. Other than that, that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you. Mr. DeMonica.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I'd like to say, thanks to everyone that came out and gave their thoughts on, well, everything, but also medical marijuana. Since we did have the presentations, good to have as much information as we can. And, you could email in comments, too, if you don't want to come in on a 7 o'clock meeting on a Tuesday night. And also, it looks like these bills aren't going to pass in the legislature, but there's some pension benefit related bills, and hopefully they don't, because it's essentially just taking away local control. It's Lansing it didn't go through, right?
I had heard that the House passed.
Oh, the House, yeah,
Passed.
one
body.
one body did, but it's probably definitely not in the other, is
Okay.
what I was told. So
The latest email was just the House. I haven't heard any report on
yeah,
the
so then
Senate's inclination.
I thought it was the opposite. I think, did it go through the? I thought I was told it went through the
I
Senate.
heard that it was going to go through in both, and that they were just concerned about the governor.
Oh well.
This is his task force, if I'm not mistaken.
Well.
Yeah, but it wasn't, that's not
Hope-
what he was asking them to do.
Well, okay. Well, hopefully either the governor stops it, or then contact your legislators. Please contact Steve Beta, Senator Steve Beta, and Representative Kevin Hertel. I mean, they're voting the way I would like them to, but they can encourage their colleagues to vote against those bills. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving and had a good time at the Reserve Officers Dinner also. I hope they invite us out next year. Thanks, Harley Gracel, for 30 years volunteering for the city. And come out to the tree lighting, of course. And the Eastpointe High School, they're doing their band and choir concert, 7 p.m., December 14th. It's a Thursday. Come on out to that, and then come on out to our audit on the 19th and give us your thoughts on that if you want. And I think that was, that's all, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Are you still writing? Are you ready?
I'm ready. Wait till you call my name.
All right, Mrs. Owens.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad everyone came out tonight. It lets me know that you guys show some support for what's going on in your community. I thank the people that came out to hear about the medical marijuana. I wasn't too impressed. As you can see, some of the medical marijuanas that, like 1 mile away from us, hasn't uplifted that community, so I don't see how it's going to uplift ours. Also, I want to thank the reserve officers for what they have done for the city of Eastpointe. As you all know, I'm a Wayne County Sheriff Officer myself, and so when these reserve officers go out into the community and they are not getting paid to help us out, I really want to say thank you again for that and inviting us. Hopefully, we get invited next year. Also, the tree lighting is tomorrow. Hopefully, you guys come out. Those that are watching at home. As you all know, it's not about the tree, it's about the person, which is Jesus who died for us. So let's remember that. Also, I don't know everybody on the Library Commission's name, but one of the guys, as you know, Sarah, had passed. So let's pray for the family. Do you know his name so we can put it out there? Who
Mr.
passed?
Michalski.
Yeah, his family passed. I didn't get to meet him at the last, he wasn't feeling good, and then they called me later on and told me he passed. So my condolences to the family. And also this Saturday is A Wonderful Life, the play at the East Detroit High School. So hopefully you guys come out and be more active in the things that's going on with the high school. This past weekend, not only did I go to the reserve officers party, but me and my children went up to East Detroit High School. They had the Little Mermaid play. And it was $5. We went out to support. They did an awesome job. Let's keep on, supporting our one high school that we have. So when they have things, please come out and support them. That helps pay for the theater, the things that they're trying to do, their costumes and things like that. Also, let's support the other schools as well. I want to touch some highlight on Miss Dern. She had asked me a question about something in the newspaper that I put concerning living. When I got elected, it was powerful to have my kids see that. If you know the history of living across 8 Mile, a lot of people that look like me, we didn't live out here. And so that we felt limited. And so me becoming council shows my daughters that you are never limited from a city, from a state, and the things that you can do and achieve. So that's why I said powerful. Not just for my kids, but for other kids that don't even look like me. It wasn't about race when I said that. It had something to do with overall things, about don't limit yourself in nothing you do, whether how you look, where you're from, and if you have money or not. So that's what that was about. So hopefully when I say things, you guys take it to a positive light, because that's where it's coming from. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I would like to offer my condolences to Mr. Michalski's wife, Hazel. It was pretty traumatic to see my good friend Dave. There will be a memorial service. A lot of people have asked. The memorial service will be in January at St. Basil's on January 20th. I'd like to invite everybody to It's A Wonderful Life. You'll see the postcards are everywhere and the flyers, and it's all over the place. It's at the high school this Saturday night at 7 o'clock. Doors open at 6:30. And it's been a really fun time to produce this play again. You'll recognize a number of our police and our ministers. We have 3 ministers that are in the play. And it's been a really fun time. You'll probably recognize everybody that's in the play, because with the exception of 2 of them, they're all Eastpointe residents. So it's inexpensive. It's $7. Seniors and students are only $5. Children under 12 are free. The funds raised are going back to provide scholarships for high school students going into criminal justice, because this is sponsored by PACE, which is Police and Community for Equality. So it's got a good purpose, and it's a good play, and it talks about a real Christmas, so it's worth it to go. And of course, tomorrow night is the Christmas tree lighting, and that's always a good time. Have to say something about the Police Reserve dinner. I thought it was so nice that they invited us. Every time you go to the park and you see our reserve officers there, and every time you go and you walk down the road and you see them at the parades and everything, very few people realize that they're all on a volunteer basis, and they give lots and lots of hours. And they're always really well qualified to be in that role. And they protect the residents, and they do it on their own, and they do it continuously. So it was really good to go over there, and especially to recognize Harley Grassel for 30 years of volunteer service to the city of Eastpointe. So it was a good opportunity for council to be there and to recognize them. And if you're wondering where this coal came from, I got to sit waiting for a shuttle to a parking lot for 45 minutes after being in 85-degree weather for 10 days and come back and it's 20 degrees. It was a real thrill. Anyway, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session, please.
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to go into closed session for attorney-client privilege communication regarding the DOJ pending litigation.
Support.
Move and support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Move into closed session at 9:05. Take 5 minutes.